I climbed the steps to my son's house with a box of homemade cookies tucked under my arm and a small wrapped present balanced in my other hand. Snow clung to my coat like white dust, melting in cold beads against the fabric. Through the front windows, warm lights glowed and shadows moved in the soft flicker of Christmas decorations. For a brief moment, I let myself believe I was walking toward comfort, toward family, toward a night where I belonged. I knocked once lightly, politely. No answer. I heard voices inside, laughter, the sound of forks scraping plates. Instead of knocking again, I pressed the handle and let myself in, thinking maybe they simply hadn't heard me. But the moment the door opened, I felt something shift. The living room was bathed in gold light. A tall Christmas tree stood proudly near the fireplace, wrapped in ribbons and warm white bulbs. And around the dining table sat Clara's family, her parents, her sister, a cousin or two I barely recognized. All of them gathered comfortably, plates full, glasses raised. Conversation froze when I stepped forward. It was Clara who spotted me first. Her bright party smile faltered, cracking like thin ice. She looked at my son and said audibly, "You didn't tell her?" Daniel's shoulders tensed. He didn't stand, he didn't rush over to greet me. He didn't even offer a smile. He just looked caught like a child hiding something behind his back. I cleared my throat. "I brought dessert and some things for the kids." Silence. A heavy, impolite silence. Clara leaned back in her chair, crossing her arms. "Helen, this dinner is for family." I held the cookie box a little tighter. "I am family." Her laugh was soft but sharp, like a pin. "You know what I mean." It wasn't anger that rose inside me first. It was distance. The feeling of standing on the wrong side of a door that used to open for me. Daniel finally stood up, but not to hug me, only to lessen the tension in the room. "Mom," he said quietly, "maybe tonight isn't the best time." I stared at him. "You invited me. Last week." His throat bobbed. "Things changed." "What changed?" I asked, though I already sensed the answer. Clara answered instead. "We're trying to have a quiet Christmas this year. Just us. No tension, no interruptions." The room stiffened. Even the children grew quieter. I placed the cookie box gently on the counter. "I didn't come to cause trouble." Clara's gaze slid over me like I was little more than a misplaced decoration. "We're building our own traditions. I'm sure you understand." Daniel stepped closer, hands shoved deep in his pockets. "Mom, please, don't make this harder." "I haven't said anything," I reminded him. He sighed sharply. "Just go home. We'll talk later." Later. A word that adults use to delay things they never intend to face. I studied his face, the man he'd become, and the child he no longer was. The boy who once woke me at dawn on Christmas morning, climbing into my lap with unfiltered joy. That boy wasn't here. That boy wouldn't have looked at me like a chore. "What exactly are you ashamed of?" I asked softly. His cheeks flushed, but he said nothing. He didn't have to. His silence gave me all the truth I needed. Behind him, Clara's father muttered, "This is uncomfortable." Clara didn't bother to hide her smirk. I stood straighter. "I brought gifts." Daniel shook his head. "Just go." "When it's convenient for your wife," I asked. Clara's eyes narrowed. "You're proving our point." "No," I replied calmly. "I'm proving yours." Daniel stepped forward, guiding me toward the door with the gentle firmness one might use on a stranger. "It's snowing. You should leave before it gets worse." I didn't move immediately. I let the moment stretch, watched Clara's irritation deepen, watched Daniel's discomfort grow, watched the room collectively pretend not to stare. Then I nodded once, picked up nothing, not the cookies, not the gift, and walked outside. The door closed behind me with a quiet click, too quiet for what it meant. Snow kissed my hair. Cold air filled my lungs. Through the window, they had already resumed their dinner, returning to their conversation as though I had been a brief inconvenience, a gust of wind that swept in uninvited and left just as quickly. No one turned to look. On the porch, I whispered into the falling snow, "Tonight, I stopped being part of their family. I became the mistake they'd rather forget." As I walked toward the street, my footsteps cracked across the icy path. but inside my coat pocket, I felt something solid, the silver card, the one thing I had left from my husband. I paused under a street lamp, snowflakes gathering on my coat. I slipped the card from my pocket. Cold metal, smooth edges, the faint emblem of the old bank Michael always trusted. He had given it to me years before he died. If you ever lose everything, he'd told me, use this. I'd never understood what losing everything meant until tonight. I held the card up toward the flickering light. Michael, what did you leave me? Across the street, people carried colorful bags into their warm homes. Their laughter didn't hurt. It only reminded me that mine had been slipping away long before tonight. I tucked the card back into my coat and walked. Snow grew thicker as I headed toward downtown. Memories of Clara's glare, Daniel's hesitation, and the silent judgment of their guests pressed into me like cold needles, but beneath all of it, something steadier was rising, resolve. I reached the bank just before dawn, the sky pale and heavy with snow clouds. At 7 a.m., the doors unlocked. I stepped inside. Warm air washed over me. The lobby smelled faintly of pine. A banker directed me to a private desk where Mr. Reeves, a man with silver hair and kind eyes, greeted me. "What can I assist you with?" I placed the card on the counter. "I need access to this." He picked it up, and something in his expression changed recognition, perhaps, or caution. "Where did you get this?" he asked quietly. "My husband left it to me." He nodded solemnly, inserted the card into a device, and watched the screen load. The moment the system recognized the card, the color drained from his face. He stood abruptly. "Ma'am, you should see this." I stepped closer. The balance displayed on the screen was impossibly large, a number that didn't seem real. "That can't be mine," I whispered. "It is," he said, "but the account was frozen 10 years ago, the day after your husband died." "Frozen? By whom?" He tapped a file on the screen. A name appeared. Daniel Hargrave. My son. The room felt suddenly colder than the snow outside. Mr. Reeves pulled up the transaction history. Line after line showed massive transfers, money funneled for years into a corporation under Daniel's name. "He drained it," I murmured. "A full extraction," the banker confirmed. "Every transfer disguised as trust adjustments. Invisible unless someone used the original card." The card Michael knew only I would hold. "Your husband left layers of protection," Mr. Reeves continued, "but accessing this card triggered a senior audit alert. Someone will know you were here." I closed my hand around the card. "Someone who shouldn't know." He nodded gravely. He opened another file, an audio transcript corrupted around the edges, marked with my husband's initials. A warning, locked behind authorization codes. Michael had known someone would betray him, and he'd known who. I gathered the printed reports and left the bank. The cold hit my face, but I barely felt it. I walked with purpose now. A car slowed beside me. The window rolled down. "Helen?" I turned. "Henry?" My husband's closest friend, a man who had vanished after Michael's death. "I've been looking for you," he said. "Your husband trusted me with things he couldn't put in writing. And Daniel, he's been making moves." I stared at him. "He threw me out of his house last night." Henry's jaw hardened. "Clara's influence. She's been steering him for years." I felt no surprise, only confirmation. Henry opened the passenger door. "Get in. There's something Michael wanted you to find, and someone has been watching for this moment." I hesitated only briefly. "Why now?" "Because Daniel accelerated everything," he replied. "He's asked lawyers questions he shouldn't know to ask, and someone tipped me off that they plan to cut you out completely before Christmas." Of course. Clara always wanted a clean holiday. I slid into the car. The door shut beside me like the closing of a chapter. Henry pulled into the street, eyes steady. "What did the banker show you?" he asked. "A fortune," I answered, "and a message from Michael, a warning." Henry exhaled. "Then it's time you know what your husband feared most." Snow fell heavier around us as the city blurred by, and for the first time since losing everything, I felt myself stepping toward the truth instead of away from it.